They do.
Hey, welcome to, we ready to go, Amanda?
Yes, we got two people coming still, but they'll. be
Okay.
good.
Welcome to the Friday, December 19th Recipients' Rights Advisory Committee meeting. Call the meeting to order and ask you for a motion about the agenda for today.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion on the agenda? Any recommended changes? If not, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. And then the minutes of our last meeting have been provided to you. We'll be looking for a motion on that.
Or
Any,
We going through the recipient rights packet right now?
yes.
Okay.
Any comments on the minutes of the last meeting for recipients' rights? If not, all those in favor of the motion to approve, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Any public comment on recipients' rights? Anyone online, Amanda, who wishes to comment?
we have people online, but nobody with their review.
Okay. Then we'll go to new business.
Ready?
Michael, did you have anything to say about the report?
So you have the report attached. You can see it's been a busy 3 months. Somebody was asking me the other day, is this normally this busy? And I would say, no, not really, right? Like I feel sometimes November, December, January seem to be a little bit calmer, but no, not yet. But I guess October, I think was a little, no, November was a little slow, but December we picked back up. So opened a total of 23 complaints in the 3 months. So that's pretty hefty. And then closed 25 complaints in that 3-month period. In addition to doing complaint investigations, we still have incident reports that come in. Those fluctuate. There's no rhyme or reason to how many incident reports come in a month compared to other months. And it's, the same providers who send in their incident reports. So we're glad to see those come in. We like to see, documentation of unusual things that happen because sometimes, that the complaint section, those incident reports are really helpful in tying some situations together, especially if, somebody's alleging that there's been abuse, there's an injury. Well, maybe we find an incident report from that next section that's related to a fall or something like that we can tie, oh, well, maybe it happened on this day because, no one can identify any details about who may have done something. We just know something has happened. So it's really nice. I never discourage incident reporting. I love receiving those. It's time consuming to read them all, but it's really nice. I have someone in our quality improvement unit who logs them all. So if it's our policy in corporate counsel as incident reports are peer review documents, so they don't get filed in the medical record. So they aren't released out to the public. But our policy states will provide a summary. So that database that we use, I can sort by a person or a program. And I can type out a summary of all the incidents that we receive for a particular person or program, something like that. It's particularly helpful when we have someone maybe moving to a new location and that provider wants some historical detail about maybe some behaviors or something like that. So it's really nice. It's probably a really ancient database that we use. I think we're going to transition eventually over to Otto and using that, our new electronic medical record system for that type of reporting. I know some of the other rights offices across the state use that for such things, incident reporting, critical incident reporting, all of that stuff. So, but they're all coming in. You'll see in September, there was 242 incident reports, October 243, and then November 191. Meetings, I am going to meetings. I added a few on here. I looked at my calendar because last time I presented, I was like, oh, I think there's a few more that I attend that I probably had not added onto the checklist. So I added Operations Committee, which meets monthly, our Contract Oversight Work Group Committee, and then MDHHS's Office of Recipient Rights offers a quarterly meeting for just directors for all of the CMHSPs. They do a separate directors meeting for licensed psychiatric hospitals. So it's informative. They talk about what we're gonna look at next, such as like the annual report document. They talk about policy change requirements that might be coming up for the next year. And then any, bills that are out there that may affect our office and, things like that. So it's also a nice time to have some question and answers if there's anything that some of us rights directors have questions about. We have the state's captive attention, and they'll address our questions and any of our needs then, in addition to always being available any other time that we need them. So it's really nice. One of our previous directors at Network 180 now works for the state's Office of Recipient Rights. And he's a really great resource. He's very knowledgeable. Him and I have we had similar investigative, techniques, and interpreted the mental health code very similarly. So sometimes you get some situations and you're like, I'm not sure exactly what to do. So it's nice because I can just reach out to the state and say, hey, I'm thinking this, am I totally off base? And then he'll call or something and we'll have a really nice conversation. So it's a really nice resource to have available to us. For residential and outpatient site visits, I am wrapping up the year with my site visits. I think I have my last site visit for the year next week, which I don't think I captured on here. We had a few new providers, a couple outpatient therapy providers. So I am going to go visit one of those providers next week and add them to my site review list. So we had a few close, so that reduced my list for next year, but then we added a few. So we added them back. My numbers haven't changed much, but we are still collaborating with all of the different rights offices within our region to accomplish all of these site visits. I asked Bill Phelps, our contract manager, how many contracts we had. Not that I would have to go visit all of them, but I think he said we had about 190 contracts. And that would be really overwhelming. Say I had to go to 150 myself, in addition to all the other duties that I do. So it's been a really, really nice collaboration with all of the rights officers across our region to kind of divvy up, because we have so many duplicative contracts with these providers. And so, instead of 5 of us coming, or I'm sure they have other contracts with other counties too. Instead of 12 county rights offices coming, they just can have maybe 1 or 2 come, and then we share those site visits among all of us. And we actually have a database that we upload them to. And so at any time I can have access to some that we contract with that somebody else does the site visit for, and I can always look those up. So that's worked really, really well. I'm really glad that we do that. Maybe in the future, there are some that we've reached out to, different counties, not part of our region, that we would be interested in also collaborating with. But we're also very selective, because our 3-year assessment, these site visits, take up a lot of weight in those those 3-year assessments. So if we are not in compliance, we are not going to get substantial compliance in our 3-year assessment. And that's really important to a lot of us. And so we're really careful about who we extend those invitations to. But so far, it's worked really well internally within our Lakeshore Regional entity. So I'm really glad to see that. Everybody gets them done and it seems fairly timely and we're all in compliance. So that's always a win-win. And then training, I did Holland Hospital and then their partial hospitalization program. That's the one I'm responsible for the year. And then trainings, I'm still doing in-person trainings twice a month. I'm trying to whittle down my 4-hour training to 3.5 hours.
Is that 10 minutes or is that a half?
Matt, our trainer, always laughs at me because I'm like, okay, I promise I'll get you out of here in 3.5 hours. And Matt is always sending me jabbers. Okay, you promised these people you would let them go. Now stop talking. But I always tell them, I have a curriculum that I have to teach that's required by MDHHS Office of Recipient Rights, but I also have 20 years of rights experience and 20 years of complaint examples that I love to share with people because I think it helps people understand what dignity and respect looks like, what abuse and neglect look like, what mental health services suited to condition looks like, what a disclosure of confidential information looks like, and all of that stuff. And so I try to make it as fun as possible and interject those examples. So sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, and this, but I think they value those examples, and I think it really helps people understand because then they come back with, oh, so the last 2 weeks that I've been training, something similar has happened while I've worked. And so I always say to them, if those things come up, let's talk about them. Let's not get people in trouble. But if it's happened within the first couple of weeks of your employment from a staff who's training you, chances are it's probably going to happen again. And so you need to have a plan on what you're going to do to address it, to report it, to protect the individual that you're working with. And so it's a really, typically they're really great classes. A few weeks ago, I had a class of 6 and that's never really that much fun. I like the bigger classes. That's when they all talk a little bit, but I am trying to respect people's time and try to kind of reduce that 4-hour class into a 3.5 hour class. Maybe eventually I'll get to 3, but I've been pretty successful at 3.5. So that's good. But then also, obviously, new hires always have the option of online e-learning through improving MI practices. That training, I think, typically there's 2 modules that people have to take. And they can start and stop the modules as they need to. And I think that takes about 2.5 hours. Up to 2.5 hours to complete that training. And that's absolutely appropriate. I understand in-person training isn't for everybody. My schedule doesn't fit everybody else's schedule, so we do have that option of that e-learning. But we also want to keep that face-to-face because some people need that too. The 2025 recipient rights update, annual update, which takes about 10-15 minutes, is coming to a close, and we are told that the 2026 recipient rights update will be issued real close to the first of the year. So that'll be available for all of our internal staff and our contractual providers, interns, volunteers, to update their rights training in 2026. So that's good. Sometimes it's been rolled out a little later, so it's nice to see that it's rolled out a little sooner this coming year. That's all I got.
You may have covered this in a previous meeting. If we have a consumer that has made a complaint in another county, like a residential
Sure.
placement, does that come under your purview or the county's purview where it happened, or both?
It could be both.
Okay.
Typically, like we have, a couple handfuls of people outside of our county.
Right.
And I prefer to do the rights investigations myself.
Okay.
Sometimes the staff don't always recognize that that person is from Ottawa County, so they may send it to the county where that residential provider resides.
Mhm.
And sometimes that rights office will just do the investigation. Sometimes they'll send it to me. But I always prefer to do them myself.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to add to that, contractually, they're supposed to notify us.
Yeah.
So Brianna would get the results anyways. And sometimes Brianna, because she's her, will look at it and say, I'm going to do it anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes you could have it twice because Brianna is probably the most seasoned investigator in the state. So not all people are created equal when they're doing this.
Mhm.
So I know for a fact that you've gotten some people's stuff because I have to sign and read every one of these things. Okay. And you've like, well, we just decided to do it ourselves
Yep.
because we weren't satisfied with the depth
Yep.
of the investigation.
Or we'll have people, other rights offices that are just logistically, they're far away. They maybe don't have time, would like me to go do the interviews. And I'm happy to do investigations for other counties. I've had, rights offices in the Upper Peninsula call me and say, can you do a site visit? Can you do this rights investigation for us? And I'm always happy to help out with other rights offices also.
Great. Thanks.
I might have missed something. So I'm looking at the summary of complaint data by category table. And I'm assuming it's supposed to line up fairly closely with the next page, the substantiated rights violations and remedial action.
Oh, are you on the annual report?
Maybe
Okay.
that might be why I have a question.
Are you looking at, yeah, okay.
Are we gonna go over that?
We're gonna, yeah, that's next.
Then I'll save it.
Okay,
Save mine.
and I hope I can answer it because it's the state's form, so.
Okay. No, then we're good. That's what I was looking for. That's
Yeah.
Might have missed it.
I have a question, sort of a follow-up to Bob's question. Under COFR, let's say there's a resident of Jackson who is residing in a location here in Ottawa County.
Mhm.
We provide oversight and supports for that individual and bill Jackson for those services. Is recipients' rights included in that package of what we do under COFR, or is it optional?
Sometimes, there are some counties that will include the rights protection in that COFR agreement. Some of them don't. I do know that Jackson Lifeways, they would expect me to do their person's rights investigations, even though I don't believe we have a COFR agreement for that. Historically, I can think of one time I received a Jackson complaint and they were like, I sent it to them and they said, no, it's a COFR. You need to do it. And I said, okay. And sometimes that makes sense because I know that our supports coordinators, I know how to get a hold of them. I know how to access their medical record and all of that kind of stuff, especially if we in Ottawa County are providing those services. So sometimes it's easier if I do it also, but I will do it. I don't always do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do have a question
Yeah.
on stuff that you did talk about. So I like that you have agreements with all of the other CMHs in the LRE for doing, divvying up these site visits. I know I've heard from providers that it's very difficult when they have, different levels and, even different CMHs at the same level doing these
Mhm.
site visits. So what's the criteria for when you would have that collaborative agreement with another county? Because I would think if one CMH does it, it should be a valid site visit for every CMH.
You would think so. There are some CMHs, in particular on the east side of the state, that will not accept any other rights office's site reviews. But I think that's also because, for example, there's a rights office that has 10 investigators, a middle manager. I have a middle manager and a supervisor, a director over that. They just do the complaint investigations. That's it. They have another team in their rights office or quality improvement unit that do only site reviews. Then they have their own training department. So those investigators don't even do rights training. Their training department does the rights training. So I think that's one of the counties that says, nope, we need to do our own because,
That Wayne,
no.
Oakland. Okay.
The thing
Yeah.
though is it's a fundamental weakness in our system that we don't have reciprocity in audits. It
It's
puts an
not
undue
required.
burden on all of our providers and us. It's one of the weaknesses of our system. And it's related to the specific mental health code requirement that each CMH has to do it, right? So depending on how you view that, but make no mistake, this is a fundamental weakness in our system that we don't have reciprocity in audit findings. One audit should count for all. It's the same criteria. So yes, some CMHs are so large that they, have so many resources. We're doing all of ours. But if you're a provider, and we're a provider as well, you could be subjected to up to 46 different audits, 46 different recipient rights office. It is one of the cries for reform that is valid.
Yeah, we need to change that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, for example, even the training. I'm okay with people using the Improving MI Practices online training. The state's Office of Recipient Rights developed the training, right? They made that available to people. Same county that we were talking about in one of the meetings that I don't sit in, their trainer, their director of training was like, nope, all of our staff, new hires have to come through us face-to-face for rights training. We will not allow them to use the Improving MI Practices training, or it's not allowed. And so I have our contract manager messaging me, oh my goodness, this person is saying no one can use this. It's not okay. It's not acceptable. And I said, it's absolutely acceptable. So that's, again, I send an email to my buddy at the state Office of Recipient Rights, and I'm like, just so you know, this is being said, I'm allowing people to use that training. And he says, of course, that's why it's there.
Yeah, and the
And
state
so
could do.
that person wanted all of the other CMHs to say, no, we can't use Improving MI Practices.
Right, and the state could say in its negotiation with whoever the heck the PHP is, this is mandatory. You will accept So
Right.
the way to do this is leadership above the CMH level to inform us. It could be done with the stroke of a pen.
Well, it's super easy. The state gives you a form
Right.
to accept somebody else's site visit, for example.
Right.
So us in the LRE, we actually developed a form that have all of our logos on it. So we don't have to do that. So it's good for all of us, but we had to vet that through MDHHS ORR and get acceptance for that. But I agree, it should.
It's
So
a
how-
self-fulfilling bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How many site visits are you doing outside of the county? What percent?
I would say the majority of my site visits that wouldn't be in Ottawa County might be in Kent County, so not super far away. But I do maybe less than 5 to 10 in a different county.
And how many
Because we,
of those are outside of LRE region?
I would probably say 20-ish. But we have one CMH within our region that doesn't have any real providers that they would need to visit inside their catchment area. So they go and do are out of catchment for all of us. So it's smaller, it's a smaller number for them that they're reviewing, but they're also taking one for the team. I feel like being a team player, driving to Flint, right, to do, say, all of Flat Rock homes or something like that. So me personally, going really, really far is just a few. Most are Ottawa, Kent, Allegan, maybe a couple, if they don't contract with one of the providers we contract with.
This is-
I think my total is around between 70 and 80 site visits for myself for the year.
I have a question about, Jordan, how we affect a change to make it better. Is that a requirement to go to the legislature and modify the mental health code? Or can that administratively be done through DHHS on a statewide level? Or can we go to the LRE and simply say, okay, we're going to make it right in our LRE and simplify it? Do we have the authority to do
And
that?
I would say that we do that at the LRE.
Right.
Yeah.
Sounds like,
We do it.
I would think that you could do it either way at DHHS or legislatively. Obviously, legislatively is the
Yeah.
most foolproof because then DHHS can't change the rules.
I think the
Mhm.
Michigan Mental Health Code in our contract requires annual site visits. I think it's in both.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so we take annual site visits, like whether we're doing them or we're using reciprocity. That's our annual site visit. If we accept somebody else's or do our own, right?
If-
And other counties are, we have to do them all.
If it says it's required to have an annual site visit, and it doesn't prescribe who has to do it,
Correct.
do you have the latitude then, without going to the state, to come up with an agreement in the LRE that says there's reciprocity within?
Yeah,
the
we already have that in the
have that
LRE.
agreement
It's
in the
outside of our area.
Mhm.
But the question really that I have is, would our lobbyists be able to lobby for this change on the state level from the LRE, the
Mhm.
Alan Boulder?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, well, you mean the Board Association,
The
because the
Board
county has a lobbyist too,
Yeah.
whose list is growing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yes, this is and I'm sure that Director Duff over here is laughing because we've been having this discussion for 20 years.
But can the LREs collaborate and say, we're going to have
Well,
reciprocity?
that was the hope. That's why the state is upset with the structure.
Right.
We haven't done it, Chairman Byrd. We've had 2 decades for all the PHPs to get together and say, this shall be. And for whatever reason, we find ways to kind of say, well, right? This is the problem.
Mhm.
This is why people get so upset with the current system. You can't even solve that. This is like, we will accept other people's audits as long as the audits have a certain criteria. To me, that's like a little blurb in a contract. We all sign and off we go. But this is something that even the state, the department could do in their contract with whoever's managing the system. But because the rights issues fall at the CMH level in the code, it makes it tough for the PHP to mandate it too, right? We just happen to do it. It's really the 46 CMHs being told, you shall do this. You could either do that, the legislature, I'm thinking of the name of the bill, the anti-CMH bureaucracy, blah, 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 right? We have a whole list of these things that you must ensure there's no duplication of audits that have identical criteria. In fact, I think I'll write it up. So the reason why rights gets into this jam is because all of the requirements are in the mental health code at the CMH level. There are no PHP recipient rights, policies, procedures. They have to ensure we're doing it. But the powers at the CMH level, the PHPs could have said, all of our partners get together and do A, B, and C, and the state could have mandated. But it's telling the CMHs, all 46 of us, you shall accept these things. We have a contract with the state, our general fund contract, it could be in there. So this is a failure of our system to really understand that duplication is bad. Like, don't duplicate it. And so what do we get? Well, let's just shrink the number of regions. Well, in this issue, you need the CMHs to be told
Right.
via some vehicle, you shall accept these things as long as they meet the same criteria. So I brought you up, but you know, we've been talking about this since, I don't know, creation.
Well, the
Um,
LRE used to do do the site visit for recipient rights. But again, that come my 3-year assessment, the LRE wasn't doing site visits in a timely fashion for me, right? So like I need them annually. It can't be 15 months after the last site visit. So they were putting me out of compliance. That's why we all pulled them back within our region for the rights portion, because we're assessed based on being compliant with that standard. And the LRE site visit team was putting us out of compliance. We were all losing points. And so we had to take that back because we're still responsible for making sure we have annual. And that's like, I think they give you 45 days or something outside of that annual 12-month assessment. And so, that's what we did as a region rights office, because it does fall onto the CMHSPs. We didn't want to lose points anymore in that section. So then we took it upon ourselves, within all of us, 5 of us or whatever, and 4 of us, and said, we're doing this. And it's worked really well, thankfully, because we're all a little bit of overachievers, and we really like that almost to perfect score.
Right.
So,
Did I hear you say you're doing all of the site reviews for Flat Rock then too? For all the contracts that we have on the east side of the state?
yeah.
Where we may have one individual that's placed at that facility?
Well, they may, if they know a CMH has done it, that like West Michigan is, I think, charged with a lot of those out of county site visits. They may reach out to, like Lisa Jolly does a lot of them for Flat Rock. And she is an overachiever like a lot of us. And so they could reach out to her, get her site review, and then just do the document saying,
Yeah.
we've reviewed it, received it, accept it.
Okay.
Yeah. So they may not necessarily go to all of them, but if they cannot get a site visit, then we have to go.
Okay.
And that's what we want to do, accept other
We
people.
absolutely do.
Exactly.
Yes,
And
yes.
decrease the impact to us
Yep.
and the site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I'm trying to get we have one person placed in a home in Traverse City.
Oh, yeah.
And so Northern Lakes does that site review. So I'm trying to get that review. We have someone in Van Buren County that I'm charged with their site review. I'm trying to get that site review. I may end up just doing a virtual review with the 2 of them until I can get out there next time, because sometimes getting different rights offices to share is difficult also.
Well,
We do our best.
and I think you guys do a great job. So I don't want this to come across as, anything critical of your office. I think there's low hanging fruit here though, that we can make a simple in concept change
Yep.
to the mental health code. So
Come
we
on.
can talk offline about
Yeah.
that.
And internally, like within our little group that we do these site reviews, like we still invite certain people because, like Kalamazoo, the director there, we know they do really great site visits, and we also have duplication. So let's help you, you help us. And so we're working on Kalamazoo to join us too, and that would benefit us greatly.
Great quality.
Mhm.
Brianna, a couple of things that you said make me wonder with site reviews, if you just don't totally have the confidence in everyone that you do in the partners that we have taken on.
True.
So I guess there's the spirit of the law, there's the letter of the law, following timelines, getting the reports done. But I think when we think about those we serve, we really appreciate that you are looking at how these are done, and that we are confident that we're placing the people we serve in places that
For sure.
are reviewed with the spirit of the law.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
So there's another section we have to go over. Are you done or is there?
It's the next agenda item. So what you have in front of you, and this one does have a motion because this has to go then to you at your next meeting to see again and to approve for me to send it on to the state. It is getting better and easier and more simplified because my friend who left Network 180 and went to the state, he is also a very techie person and has done this annual report, semi-annual report, and knows the loves and the dislikes about this report. And so he's actually been doing a really great job. I've sent him a few emails thanking him for making this annual report so much better than it has been in the last 20 years. Like it's awesome. Like it's just easier to do. The logs that they give us to use throughout the year help fill out this annual report in a really nice way. So it all kind of just goes together. It flows. It's just really, it's becoming a real nice method to do this annual report. So you'll see, I guess in the complaint data summary, we received 64 complaints. But you'll also, then the next one, you'll see I only did 52 investigations. So that means the next one, 12, so 52 and 12 equals 64. 12 of those were either no code or out of my jurisdiction. So that means, you know, maybe it's a Network 180 person, maybe it's a Van Buren person who called me to file a complaint. It's outside of my jurisdiction. No codes could be somebody's complaining about their sister. I don't have jurisdiction over that person's sister. Sometimes I'll get complaints about people's payee or their guardian. And if we don't have a contract with that person, I don't have jurisdiction over that person. So it's instances like that capture those 12. So I personally did 52 complaints in the last fiscal year. You'll see that I substantiated 25 of the 52, which comes out to a 48% substantiation rate. Of the 52 complaints that were investigated, 12 of those included abuse of some sort, abuse 1, 2, or 3. Abuse 1 is obviously the most severe. Abuse class 3 is verbal abuse, okay? And then abuse class 2 would be in the middle where maybe somebody used an unapproved physical management technique, for example. And 5 of the 12 of those were substantiated. Neglect, that substantiation rate is typically a little bit higher because when somebody reports that somebody was non-compliant with a rule, a law, a policy, somebody's individual plan of service that potentially put them at risk of harm, it's usually pretty valid. So 10 out of the 11 of those complaints were substantiated. Dignity and respect is usually the highest investigated complaint or allegation for the year, and that was 16 with 5 substantiated. Mental health services suited to condition was 2. An individual written plan of service, so maybe it wasn't done in a timely fashion, written in a timely fashion, that kind of stuff, updated. That was 1 with 0 substantiated, and then a disclosure of confidential information that was always, that's usually pretty far up there also from year to year. It's easy to send an email to the wrong Brianna Fowler. Maybe it's Brianna Flower. It's happened. Unfortunately, there was a Brianna Flower who worked for the public health department back. I don't think she still works there, but yeah, Brianna Flower got a few of my emails with some protected health information back in the day. So breaches of confidential information. You know, typically these are self-reported in a lot of situations where the staff comes directly to me and says, oops, I did this. I'm so sorry. I will pay closer attention. I write up the report. It's a pretty easy report to write. I send it to the supervisor to do perform remedial action. They send me a plan back and say, we did verbal coaching. Maybe they received a written reprimand. Maybe some additional training is necessary. So those are always fun to do. I appreciate the staff who are honest and come to you and admit that, because we're all human. It's easy to do. It's very easy. In the next section for the complaint remediation, you'll see, I guess, what happened. That's important to the state, that information. It's particularly important to the state related to like abuse and neglect, because the Michigan Mental Health Code requires disciplinary action for substantiated violations of abuse and neglect. So they don't want to see somebody receiving a verbal coaching if they've been accused and substantiated abuse. At least for the Michigan Mental Health Code purposes, a written reprimand is the minimum requirement for disciplinary action. So that's why they ask for this information, so they can make sure Dr. Bashirs and I are not approving plans that come back to us that don't meet the letter of the law. Okay, bless you. And then the next part on the second page is the training. And according to our contract, I think I have to have 36 hours in 3 years. Well, I received 27 continuing education credits last year. And most of those, except maybe, I think I went to one Recipient Rights Officers Association of Michigan meeting last year. So the majority of those credits come from the annual recipient rights training that I attend. So that's a really great resource. And of course, you know, I can't take any legal credits if they don't offer any legal credits. So I looked hard on that agenda so I could have something in every category, and it just wasn't offered this year at the conference. Then in the second part, they ask about training. So how do we do our training? Well, we do it in person. And so, you know, community mental health had maybe 14 people that came through in-person training the last fiscal year, 188 contractual and 7 other, which would be maybe self-determination, choice voucher staff coming through face-to-face training. And then the e-learning, you'll see that we had 190 people complete that for the annual update. That's what I categorized, that e-learning. And then 957 completed the annual rights update in the fiscal year 25 and then, or 24, 25, and then 167 others, which would be your self-determination, maybe a recipient. I don't know that, it's not specified. So that's why I just leave that recipient category blank. Paper, I put that because every month I put a tidbit in our newsletter internally, sometimes externally every month. And so I just got those numbers from Max's tally on how many emails go out related to that newsletter. And then we didn't have any appeals the last fiscal year. So that's why that blank is 0, or that box is 0. Which is typical for us. Sometimes we'll have 1, sometimes we'll have 2 for a 3-year assessment, but typically it's 0. But every person, whenever there's a complaint on their summary report, they get a letter that outlines their appeal rights. And then the other attached documents are just parts of that Excel spreadsheet that I printed for all of you to look at.
Brianna?
Yeah.
In your substantiated complaints, you have like let me get up to abuse and neglect. So is it broken down as to like, there's 5 abuse and cases, and how many of those 5, is it broken down as to how many are 1, 2, and 3, or the neglect? you have 10 of those cases, how many are in it? I see the individual, I can go through
Yeah.
the sheet, but I just know, I'm just
So-
curious out of that, how many of the percentages of the,
I don't know the percentage, but that's the state's summary report. If you go, excuse me, if you go to page 4, it'll say summary of complaint data by category.
Right.
And there you'll see like there was no abuse 1, which would be your sexual abuse, physical abuse that maybe caused death or sexual abuse.
okay,
But you'll see like, oh, there was 2 sexual abuse, sorry, and 1 was substantiated. So abuse 1 would be some abuse that caused death. Abuse 1, sexual abuse, and then you'll have your non-accidental act. So somebody who pushed somebody or grabbed somebody or did something like that. Unreasonable force, we didn't have any unapproved physical management techniques for the year. Treating as incompetent, so maybe we had somebody who was making a choice for somebody and there was some negative effect because of that, and that person was not their appointed guardian.
Let me
Dictation.
just add something.
Yeah,
But we could take that data
no, for sure.
and create pie charts and percentages for each classification so that you know that type 1 was only 2% of the
Right.
total. I
Yeah.
think that's what you're asking. Is that
right,
correct?
exactly, and just the breakdown.
We
just-
could do that. Yeah,
We can't do that, but I bet somebody else can do that.
I can do that.
We, meaning me, I have
I
tried.
could take this and do that. Yeah.
It's not my forte, but I'm willing to learn if somebody teaches me how to do that. Yes,
Got it.
absolutely. I was actually dabbling with some charts and stuff like that before this to add to this. And then I got frustrated because it wasn't working for me. I'll work on it, Paul, I promise. But yes, I can do that. That would be.
Okay.
I'll
Thank
figure it out. I bet I can find somebody to help me.
Mr. Phelps.
Yes, probably. Or somebody else in our IT department, or Dr. Bashir's apparently is really good at it, so.
We'll have AI do it. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Amanda, do you like charts? You do?
Yeah. she's a chart nerd.
Woohoo.
That's why I was confident we got it.
Okay, I was just making sure.
We usually means,
Look at me and put me.
when I say we, I usually mean Amanda.
Question for you. On the substantiated neglect, do any of those charges that you substantiated rise to the level of criminal activity that needs a referral to the police?
Sometimes, yes. And typically, it might not always start out at like making a police report. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it's a report to the Office of Recipient Rights. It's a report to Child or Adult Protective Services. It's a report to adult foster care licensing if it happens to be an licensed adult foster care. So that complaint might have 3 different sets of eyes looking at that complaint. And typically like adult protective services or licensing will then elevate it to like the prosecutor's office. If they're not already involved, but there have been times where the police department is involved and then I'm trying to do my investigation and I'm like, may I sit in? And then, no, you mayn't. So you have to wait your turn, let us do our thing so you don't impede our investigation. And then I'll usually get to pop in after the police detectives and stuff are done, but
Yeah, the right system does not replace the criminal justice system at all. And our providers under their AFC agreements or whatever agreements they have are all subject to all of that reporting.
mhm.
So we don't replace any of that. We're an extra layer of oversight to protect the dignity and safety of our clients,
Yeah.
but we don't interfere with that, and it's separate from us. We might sometimes inform the process, as Brianna is saying, but we're not actually replacing it. And that can be confusing to the public. So it's like, well, recipient rights is in there. Do they do like a legal investigation? Well, that's not us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like yesterday, for example, somebody called me and they didn't necessarily have a rights complaint, but they wanted to just run a scenario by me because they weren't sure if I had jurisdiction. Well, it was a recipient of service who was upset with her sister. So right there, I don't have jurisdiction. But when she described what was happening, the sister is not her guardian, is not her durable power of attorney. The person is not incapacitated. The person has like a special needs trust. And supposedly there was a certain amount of money in the trust a few months ago, and now that amount is a lot less. And so, you know, there's an adult protective services referral and there's a police referral. And so we talked about, okay, this is where, when you meet with her and you file those complaints, you're going to file a police report, you're going to file with adult protective services. And, but I didn't have jurisdiction over that particular one.
So if it does have a legal component, like I see there on the list, there was one substantiated abuse, class 1 sexual abuse case, but I don't see it on the remedial action table. Do you not?
Well, our remedial action table would be probably termination.
That makes sense to me. I just didn't know if, I'm
Yeah.
assuming if it's sexual abuse, the cops were probably, hopefully
For
involved.
sure, for sure.
So I didn't know if you then just kind of passed that off and didn't take remedial action because the person might be in jail. I don't
No,
know.
it would require remedial or disciplinary action, which is most likely, they said that the person was terminated. So that's
Okay.
what we classified.
Yeah,
it
it's
as.
just not showing up on the table.
What table?
The remedial action table. I just didn't see abuse class 1 section in there.
On page 4? Or on,
On substantiated rights violations and remedial action taken.
well, I will go back and look because maybe there's something that's not pulling, like from the state, when I reviewed it, that's not pulling, it didn't pull it here.
Okay.
Or maybe it accidentally classified it as sexual abuse, it's actually not. I'll go back and look at it.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, no problem. That's just, obviously that is a really, really serious one.
Oh, for
so-
sure. For sure. And honestly, like I'm thinking in my head, I don't, that I remember 2 sexual abuse allegations last year. So that's good to look at. I'll go back and look
Appreciate it.
before we submit it.
So I'm just curious, who does the actual licensing on the homes then? Is that HHS or what entity does that piece?
The licensing of adult foster care homes,
Yeah.
Laura.
Laura, okay.
Mhm.
And then is there like a local component to that or is it just a state office?
Nope, they actually have a group in Kent County
Okay,
that provides oversight, I believe,
Yeah, Laura has,
Ottawa, Kent, Muskegon,
yeah, they have like regional things to enforce it.
maybe even Cadillac-ish area.
Yeah. So Laura's responsible for the licensing requirements for all AFCs,
okay.
and they have reporting requirements as well. You won't be happy to hear that one of the changes that they made is that providers don't have to submit incident reports to them anymore directly, and you just have to keep a record of them, that you sent them, that you have them if you're a provider, unless it's like a sentinel event, a major issue. But in the past, we not only did a provider, it was pretty laborious, but had to send stuff to, say, the CMH, but also to Laura, because their reviews look at some of the same categories. They're not duplicative enough for me to say, why don't you combine them? Because they're 2 different aspects, but providers are no longer required to send incident reports to Laura, who licensed them.
It's very odd.
Yeah,
Well,
it made that change last year, except
it's
for a certain event.
then it's confusing for our providers because then they don't have to send them to Laura. So they're like, oh, you all still want them? Yeah, yeah, we still want them.
It seems like should be part of licensing, like if you.
Yeah,
In
so-
maintaining licenses.
Right.
And stuff.
And
They should
again, if
know that.
you, with Laura, they do a site visit every 2 years, right? So they want to review them at that point,
Okay,
unless they reach a certain standard, like a sentinel event, somebody died, or there was then they still want those, but they were getting hundreds of thousands of incident reports, and they're like, we're really not going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
unless it rises to a level of significance. So when our site visits, we'll look at them, but that hasn't caught up either. When I was working for David's house, they still didn't have a way of like, show me all your incident reports from the last 2-year report,
Yeah.
you know?
It's interesting because when I did licensing in Kent County for foster homes, we studied, we licensed, we did all the incident reports and, like everything was housed in the same spot. So you would really know everything going on with the
Yeah, you were
home.
using logic again.
Right. Yeah.
So I do see where something maybe with their formulas
Mm.
that they had in there, because I remember on the first page I had said, or when we were looking at the categories for abuse, on page 4, I said there was no unreasonable force, but on my remedial action, there is. So I'm thinking maybe
Yeah.
there's a formula or something on the state's thing, so I'll go back and change that. Because there's for sure not maybe one less abuse class 1 sexual abuse. So I just need to make sure where that discrepancy is coming from with the state's formulas. So I'll correct that.
So that one has a motion in it, right?
It does.
And if someone would like to make the motion as written, just to clarify, this would be the recipient rights committee of the board making a recommendation for us to consider at our subsequent board meeting.
So moved.
Should
Support.
should we make a note at all about the change that needs to be made to the report in our motion? If she's going to be submitting
I would.
something different,
Pending changes from staff.
sounds great.
Yes, I will make those changes, promise.
Did you
Okay,
catch
so
that too?
the motion would be as written, and then with recommended changes.
Yeah.
And would the maker of the motion and the supporter agree to that change?
Yes.
Agree.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, the same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. And then do you have something for us for the review and training on policy?
Sure. All right, so these are the last policies for 2025. This is the last required stack. My spreadsheet to the state's requirements is completely filled out. I have to actually put the page number, the letters, the numbers, like exactly where in this policy that statement is found. So if anybody wants this, I can absolutely send this to you. And I actually, for the state, will have to put the number that it equates to on their spreadsheet on the policy for them. So that is all done for 2025. I'm getting very prepared for our 2026 3-year assessment. There were no changes, I don't believe, in any of these policies.
One of the changes you did make was change my title.
I did,
Yeah,
yeah,
from executive director to CEO.
yes.
I had to sign them all, so I know that.
So you have consent to treatment. So not only is it, it just falls into my rights category, but you'll see it also has, some clinical references and stuff in it that I'll send it to, say, Keith and Katie to review also. Family planning is a required policy by the state. That's why it's very short. It includes the requirements. Consumers' right to entertainment materials, information, and news is a requirement. This one makes me laugh because a daily newspaper is still in the Michigan Mental Health Code, free of charge. Not an electronic newspaper, the mental health code is old and they like paper still, so that makes me laugh. I still remember back in the day, somebody making a complaint about not being able to watch television. And I said, oh, well, I'm going to be in the area. I'll just stop by. And I walked in and everybody's sitting in the living room watching The Price is Right. And I said, oh my gosh, you guys, what happened? Did the provider just buy a TV today because they knew I was stopping by? And they all just looked at me and they said, we don't know what you're talking about. We've been able to watch television all weekend. And I said, well, I have 15 voicemail messages from you saying you couldn't watch television. What's going on? Well, this was back in the day where they had a DirecTV cable system installed. And so the DirecTV cable guy came, put the dish up, set up all the TVs, but didn't put any parental controls in place. So they were watching pay-per-view channels all night long when their live-in home provider retired to her apartment. So when the owner got their first bill, it was like $600 more than she anticipated. So she came in on a Friday afternoon and put parental controls in place, blocking all the pay-per-view channels. So that's what they blew up my phone all weekend because they couldn't watch television. Well, they could, they just couldn't watch what they wanted to watch, maybe. Comprehensive examinations, medication procedures, use of psychotropic medications is a required policy. Really making sure that medications aren't being used as punishment, right? That people are consenting to medications, that they're reviewed and evaluated. Then we have change in type of treatment. So just updating the written plan of service when there are changes to treatment. And then, of course, we want people to live in the least restrictive environments, have that freedom of movement, knowing that everybody's least restrictive environment maybe looks a little bit different than the next person's least restrictive environment. And then communication, mail, telephone, and visitors. Of course, we want people to have visitors of their choice. Send and receive mail. We don't want staff just, opening individuals' mail and checking it out before they give it to them. I had one complaint a couple of years ago. We had a gentleman write a postcard and a staff person took a picture of the individual's postcard before it went out. And that was obviously a rights violation. That was none of her business to do that. And so she got a mail violation for that. But all of these things are all great, mail, telephone, visitors, but we also know that some of our individuals need limitations to those things also. Because calling 911 inappropriately is going to get you in trouble if you do it too many times. And so putting some limitations on an access to the telephone and maybe having a call list and staff dialing the phone for somebody or holding mail and giving it to a guardian, for example, because we have individuals who are opening credit cards when they get their junk mail. So they're getting, $200, $300 limits on a number of credit cards that they can't pay for. So we've had behavior plans where staff would sit down with clients and say, is this good mail or junk mail? And they'd have a shredder sitting right there, and together they would decide what they should shred and what they shouldn't shred, what they should pass on to the payee or guardian, etc. And then services suited to condition, of course, we want medically necessary services that fit everybody's needs. And so this policy is just saying that the person-centered planning process will be used and that a written individual plan of service will be kept current with those appropriate services. So again, no changes, just keeping them all
Brianna? On
organized.
Attachment G, I think there's a typo on the date reviewed, 26.
1.17. Oh, whoopsie. Yeah, 25.
We're
Thanks,
looking
Dave.
ahead, I guess.
I know, I was excited. So you'll see all of these policies coming back through in 2026.
I'll just make a comment on one of the policies that is a requirement on family planning. We're not doing the direct education on family planning. We have the requirement to advise that that information is available and assist people that are interested in that on resources in the community to link them. But CMH isn't providing family planning education beyond our scope. We are ensuring that CMH services are provided regardless of somebody's view on family planning. We can't deny that. But I wanted to let the board and the community know it's an obligation for us to educate on the availability of it, but we're not providing that direct education in those categories. So if you read that, it's like, boy, that's an interesting policy in there out of the whole. And that's why I'm putting out. And the other one is treatment suited for a condition. I take that one extremely seriously, as we all do, to ensure that people get what they actually we've deemed as medically necessary. So if we have shortfalls in that, it can rub up against we're not providing the treatment suited to condition. And that could be us as a CMH not providing enough, or a provider, or there is an overreach on more than somebody needs, like somebody requests, 1,000 units of whatever. Well, the treatment is suited to their condition and not by the wishes of the CMH or the guardian. There's a way of doing that. So that's one from a recipient rights policy one we kind of bump up against a lot. But you don't find too many substantiated complaints about it because we're working to consistently ask that question. Are folks getting what is medically necessary and what they need with choice involved? And so that's one of the recipient rights policies that as board members, you might hear indirectly about. I couldn't get this, or I think I should have had that. So as board members know that in addition to our regular way of looking at that, there's also a recipient rights oversight related to those issues too. I just highlight two of them.
And I found the correction for abuse class 2, they actually should be both under unreasonable force.
You weren't going to let that go. until you found it.
I'm like, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to figure it out.
Michael, as a follow-up to that point you just made, is there an empirical standard for service delivery for a particular condition, or is it subject to interpretation? And I guess the danger is over-prescribing services, but there's also danger in under-prescribing.
Yeah, the answer is it depends on the service. Sometimes there's specific parameters and evidence-based practices that drive it, and sometimes there isn't. And so you have to work through the person-centered planning process to figure out what is actually needed. Trying to define medical necessity is more tricky than we think, and it's beyond the scope of this discussion, but something we can go over. Because when you read the medical necessity criteria in the Medicaid provider manual, you can drive a Mack truck through it. So there's a delicate balance, Chairman Byrd, in what we're talking about. And the reason why I was bringing it up in the context of recipient rights, it's so important. It's also a requirement for the rights department to ensure that, so when there is like an incident report that comes in, Brianna's looking at that category as well, which is a nice double check for our system to say, are we providing what's needed? Did this person get the treatment that's suited for their condition, right? Or you wouldn't prescribe, I'll give you a really outlandish example. Like you wouldn't give somebody shock therapy for a condition that doesn't need it. So that would be a treatment that was not suited for their condition. That would be against their rights, against respect and dignity. But in that example, there were decades back in the day where that was exactly happening, right? So that's how something like this ended up in a rights category. I wish there were exact, agreed upon, uniform standards on how much somebody should get of something. There are not. So we are left to try to do that via the person-centered planning process with some guidance from the state when they have provided such providers, but that's not true for every service.
And there is another avenue for challenging a
Appeal.
determination.
Appeals.
Yeah,
Mhm.
with the Medicaid fair hearing.
Yes, and general local appeals if it's not that. But I brought that up because it's one of those areas that, hey, just so you know, there's extra oversight in addition to what the CMH say somebody should get. Or the parent or guardian or consumer themselves saying, I want 50 sessions a week of outpatient therapy, right? Well, that's not treatment suited to that condition. That would be an overreach. But you don't want outpatient therapies happening quarterly either. So we look at all this data, and I bring it up in the Recipient Rights Committee again to say this is one of those categories that I think legitimately can rub against rights and how we're looking at service array. But it's more of an art versus a science, and it requires a lot of diligence for Brianna to answer that question. And we're blessed to have her level of expertise to do it. It's not easy. It's harder if you're new to that. And the only other thing I was going to bring up is on the old business, you did, and the county did approve another position to assist rights. We were waiting to see what the state does with this PHP restructuring thing as it relates to rights to figure out the best course for because we don't know if anything will change in the right system. And if it does, that might alter what Brianna recommends to me, what we need. So we're not ignoring it. The position's approved. We have a position description. We're just trying to make sure that we don't hire something that, oh, guess what? The whole thing's being done at the regional level now, which I doubt. But so that's the delay on that.
Any other questions on the information that's been presented? I do have one just as clarification under family planning. Am I correct that we are not using our Medicaid dollars for actually providing services under that policy?
Correct. Any funding source. It's not our job to deliver the service, but to educate and coordinate people that's available. And if you're interested, how do we do it? Like any type of referral, but this raised to the level of the state requiring it and putting in the recipient rights mandated policies and knowing us and the public and stuff, just to be clear on why that's there. Right? So we're not delivering the service or paying for it, but we are educating people to the availability of family planning and helping coordinate that if so desired. Coordinating means linking, not delivering.
But that does raise an ethical question for some people about should we even be advising people to follow some of these.
Yeah.
These
And we're going to follow the law until told not to on any policy we have. So, but knowing that's in there, I thought I'd bring it up and clarify because some people may not realize it's in there in the public or in stuff. And, but it is a requirement. We will follow it.
Okay, there is no action required on that. We received that information. Any other questions for Brianna while we're here?
And report is fixed.
Any further public comment on recipients' rights? Anything online? Okay, then we will, absent anybody's objection, we will consider recipients' rights adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, Brianna.
Thank you, Brianna.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And we will then go to our regular board meeting and call it to order. Kendra, I believe you're going to do the invocation for us today.
Good morning, Father. We thank you for bringing us all safely together this morning and for the privilege of serving our community. As we begin this meeting, we ask for your guidance. Please help us to listen well and make wise choices. Grant us wisdom on any decisions we may make, compassion as we listen, and humility as we lead. Lord, remind us that the work we do affects real people and real lives. Give us compassion for those we serve and strength for any challenges we may encounter. Please guide our words and actions so they reflect your love and your care for those we are serving. We place this time and our efforts in your hands. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please rise if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You have a copy of our mission and vision statement included in the packet. Just ask you to reflect on that and be reminded of our commitment to the community. Do we have any public comment?
Barbara Lee from the City of Grand Haven and the Momentum Center. Just wanted to update you on the progress of the friendship benches. We now have about 17, I think, at least 17 people who have stepped forward to want to volunteer to be trained to be bench buddies. We can take up to 30, and we're specifically recruiting right now Spanish speakers and Laotian people. So, and that comes with the support of the Ottawa, the OMA. It changed, it used to be OHEC, and now it's OMA. So I have to remember the acronyms. But it's the Office of Ethnic and Minority Equity, Minority Health. And so a grant has been received, and we can use partial part of that money toward making sure we're reaching the Laotian and Spanish-speaking communities. We also, that training will probably start taking place the end of January and into February during Saturdays when most people are available for that kind of training. We also have 3 confirmed sites for benches and several others that we're talking to. We will be at both the Loudoun Library and Spring Lake Public Library. And we'll also be at St. John's Episcopal Church. And again, a number of conversations taking place with grocery stores and others. So we're excited about that. We want to make sure that if people are interested in participating, that they let us know. I also wanted to let you know that our Free Food Fridays have gone very well. We had a rather low turnout the Friday after Thanksgiving, I think just because people had lots of opportunities to get food that week. And then it's been constantly growing every week since. A number of people we've never seen before who we've been able to connect to other resources. Some have become members. And both those programs, the Friendship Bench and the Free Food Friday, are being done without using any millage dollars. So I want to make sure you know that. I'm not reporting on that because it's a millage thing, but just to make you aware of efforts being done around mental health in our community. So just an update. Thank you for your support and happy holidays.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment? Dawn, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Are you able to hear me? Hello? You can hear me?
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone. Hope you're able to find some extra joy this time of year. I just want to come before you quickly, and I'm so sorry I'm not there in person. I am halfway there in person. I am from Heritage Homes. I live in Holland. I just wanted to make sure that I bring before you that we are desperately in need of the increase that we've been asking for 2 years, and that we're becoming desperate as an agency, and that the we have requested approximately 18% increase last year to our rates in specialized residential. We have essentially experienced a cut. We have figured out a way to pay some pass-throughs that were required through the Michigan legislature to our direct care staff that has been interpreted differently than has been since the pandemic, and where those pass-throughs originated through the LRE and was not any longer funded as a pass-through to our agency or others. So that was a cut in the way that we experienced it and needed to continue to fund our staff in two different manners. And if we didn't fund our staff, all we do is continue to lose staff or be unable to hire them. And we would experience a further difficulty in the direct care crisis, and be unable to serve the individuals that need the service so desperately. And then into this year and last year, we held on knowing that there wasn't money available to spend. We became as lean as we could. We kept holding on. This year, again, after the fact of the new year, we've talked about our rates. We met individually. We're holding on. We're waiting. We know there's a changing environment. All of the providers that are at the end of the what feels like snap the whip game when you're playing in an ice skating rink, and the cost of utilization management is hitting us, and we have no way to manage our utilization except, as other providers have mentioned, is to make very difficult decisions and let residents give residents notices that we can't provide services to them anymore. So please do look at other ways to find services, service dollars, including ask the county, while we still are a department, for a way to provide money to our most vulnerable, so that we don't go out of business. Thank you so much. And I'll follow up with an email with more detail for everybody. Thank you very much. Happy holidays again.
Thank you, Dawn. And you can be assured that we are critically aware of the problem and have had discussions about this in even this past week in the Finance Committee. And Dr. Bashirs is well aware of the need. But thank you
Yes.
for your comments.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else, Amanda? Okay, then we will move to the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Any comments or adjustments suggested to the agenda? If not, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Consent items. We have the minutes of the last board meeting, and we have the service contracts that have been forwarded by the Finance Committee, as well as the finance statement for your receipt. We've had some suggestions on what it means if we approve the financial statement. And without going into a discussion of that right now, let's consider this as a suggested motion would involve accepting the financial statements from the Finance Committee. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Any comments? This would be a roll call vote.
My only comments would be that I know we had talked about language a little bit, is just clarifying that we're receiving these reports, and it's not that we are, saying that everything is accurate or won't ever change, but that we're receiving the information.
That's correct.
There's some difference between the contracts versus receiving of the reports.
Yes,
So
yes.
the contracts have
Contracts
been
are
approved.
approving.
Yes.
The other ones are received. Because if we didn't do that, we'd be in violation of the mental health code. So. Mhm.
Director Bunce,
Yes.
Director Davis,
Yes.
Director Rhodey,
Yes.
Director Duff,
Yes.
Director Dritzma,
Yes.
Director Faulkner,
Yes.
Director Van Hoven,
Yes.
Director Vanderswag,
Yes.
Director Wenzel. Yes. Chair Bird.
Yes, motion carries. Next item would be committee reports, and I'll ask the committee chairs to make reports as appropriate. The Finance Committee is, the packet was included.
All right. I wasn't able to participate in person. So Sylvia did chair the meeting, and any of you who were there, please feel free to correct or add to the statements that I'm going to make about our meeting. We met on Monday, of course, and our presentation was an update on IBH authorization, the financial reports, and CCBH monitoring, and that was by Dr. Lubers and team, and we presented information from that to you earlier in this year. Now, what we were looking at now is how we were encouraged to look kind of bird's eye at how this report is being done, rather than to look at content in the cells that were presented, but just focusing on both under and overutilization of what had been authorized, all trying to help us get a better handle on not only projecting costs and reducing exposure, but also looking at, are the services really being utilized? And so concern about underutilization is just as big as over. So, and then they'll be moving forward with this. It's a huge undertaking because so much data goes into so many small areas of our reporting. But they'll be moving forward with the same model, and we'll be looking at that again. And then under old business, Dr. Bashir has emphasized that we are continuing to look at specialized residential, and the new rate calculator has been utilized for new residents. So our question is, well, what can we do for existing residents, and how can we make them whole somehow? And making a move in this direction, Dr. Bashir's is increasing rates for specialized residential by 3%. And this totally doesn't solve the issue, but it moves us in a good direction. Essentially, my understanding is it will bring them to the level before we made the changes with the millage funding not being there for them. And of course, this is a temporary, and it's a step and moving in the direction of using the new rate calculator for all of the residents. Also under new business, CCBHC oversight will now become a regular permanent category for our finance committee to look at. And the final thing under new business was we reviewed 2 service contracts that we brought before you today. And then one final item was we were looking at the financial statement, and we had the discussion as we talked a little bit again today about what does it really mean to approve. And we looked at the fiscal year 2026, the first month of it, and even though we know we haven't closed out the 2025, we had to move on to this, and we will, after everything is settled in the 2025 fiscal year, after everything comes in, we'll be looking at the annual on that. So that's a summary. Anyone from the committee have anything else to add or correct?
I would just say that I greatly appreciate the depth of the discussion in those meetings, that we're really trying our best to get a handle on being better able to forecast what our budget numbers are going to be. And I was very happy to hear that we're also looking at the risks of underutilization as well as overutilization, because it doesn't fit the general mindset of how people would think. But, you know, if someone underutilizes their outpatient therapy and ends up in the hospital, that's a big cost to us. So that's just an example, but I appreciated the IBH, right? The IBH folks that did the presentation. And I think we're getting a closer handle on being able to forecast, so.
Sylvia, do you have anything to say about the accepting the financial reports?
Not really. I think it's just that nuance in wording that we're receiving it, because I think that, you know, because things are so in flux that we just sometimes struggle with, you know, approving them, but we would rather say that we're receiving them.
Yep.
Not that we disagree with the work of our staff at all. It's just such a complex numbers situation.
Michael, question for you. Under the mental health code or our contract with MDHHS, are we required to certify the financials on a monthly basis? We approve the budget for the year, and I assume the final budget report for last year, which we'll get, it maybe in March or April, there'll be an approval of that report.
Right. There's no requirement that monthly you have to certify anything. But you have to approve the receipt of, like the nuance you're talking about. The difference to me is the contracts. So the finance committee is doing that and bringing it here. Other than that, there's an annual budget and then a year-end budget that you have to kind of say yes to, like the annual one. The one at the end of the year is like in receipt of and understand it, because you can't actually make changes to it.
Right.
Yeah, add more revenue. That'd be great. But no, every month you don't have to certify the budget, because these are projections to give you an understanding on where we're going and what we know to that date monthly. But contracts you do, it's a very specific language that you have to approve contracts.
Now, with regard to the LRE, is there a requirement for us to modify our budget as circumstances change?
Yes, we're constantly asked to constantly, I'm being a little dramatic. We are asked, it feels constantly, looking at finance, we are asked to revise, quote, spending plans based on new revenue projections. And we're also required to submit, say, potential budget deficit reduction plans if it looks like you're in a deficit. The region, though, this will be part of my director's report, but I'll just say it now. The region is entertaining the idea of some additional oversight for all of us in the region if you are, say, projected to be more than, say, 5% of your budget or 3%. I've asked the region to be more involved and help and understand the variables related to both deficits and reductions in revenue, instead of just letting us know what they could be and us at the local level trying to solve it. They ultimately have a responsibility as well. So we are asked to submit kind of like changes in what we would do based on the data. But to be honest with you, we don't really know the projected revenues, so it's always a moving target based on Medicaid and all these other things. And so we're looking at the regional level reporting revenue quarterly, because monthly, the variability is so much that the CMHs are like, so I'm submitting a plan one month and, oh, look, it was worse than we thought with revenue. We have to do it again another month. So I know there's talk at the regional entity level to go to quarterly revenue projections and then making adjustments quarterly versus trying to do this in a monthly financial statement review, FSR, or kind of monthly. The variability is just too much in terms of revenue. When billing comes in for expenditures, when we know it, we're always 2 months behind or a month behind on knowing our expenditures that came in. That's why some of these other reports that we're developing are very important to us in terms of projecting what we've authorized. So, I'll say this, and I don't mean to sound critical, but it's going to come off that way. We're still figuring out at the regional level how to best project and report to the CMH level revenue, and we are still doing that on the expense side. And we've been in existence for 10 years. This is how complicated it is. So I'd give you that answer.
Mhm. Thank you. I think having this discussion for us as board members is critical because we really need to understand what it is we are dealing with and what we're voting on, so that in good conscience, we can claim that we understand what our vote was about.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any other questions about Finance Committee? If not, we will thank you, Vani, and then we can segue right into, Michael, your
Yeah.
executive report.
I have a couple of items to say. First of all, to the board and the public and CMH staff, happy holidays. We're looking forward after the holiday, looking at some of our annual kind of reporting. So you'll start to see that, seizing what happened. Not from a fiscal year per se, but just kind of calendar year, some items I'm putting together. I want to update you on a couple of things. I'm going to go out of order on my bullet points a bit. PHP restructuring update, and to remind the public, the state has a plan and they've put out a request for proposals to restructure who manages the community mental health system. As we know, right now there are 10 regions that do that. We're part of the Lakeshore Regional Entity. As you're also aware, there was a lawsuit from CMHs and some of the PHPs to stop the state from actually moving forward for this RFP. There was supposed to be a legal decision on Monday from a judge to answer this question. Are there elements of the state plan that violate the mental health code? And that's really at the CMH level. The judge is not saying, the judge has already acknowledged, to say it in the right way, that the state can restructure the number of PHPs anytime it wants. That's not in question. It's not in question, will we have 10 PHPs? The state can say you can have 3, you can have 5, you can have 1, you can have 11. The judge has ruled on that. So what we're talking about right now is understanding the role and function of a CMH within any PHP moving forward, specifically related to the state's proposal to move to 3 regions. So what the judge is ruling on is, can CMHs meet their mental health code requirements if they're not part of managing the Medicaid system or managed care functions like access, utilization management, or more importantly, holding contracts for Medicaid services. And it's the contention of the CMHs that it'd be very difficult for us to provide an array of services if we can't hold contracts and do that. So that's in essence is what's being decided. I'll tell you my opinion of where we think we'll land, and we'll see if I'm accurate or not when the results come out. I think the state's going to continue with their movement to restructure the number of PHPs. I also think the judge is going to say, if you move forward, you have to remedy what I've identified, I being the judge in that sentence, as violations of the mental health code. I don't believe the judge is going to rule, nope, can't do it. I think he's going to offer, and he's been very clear saying he doesn't want to design the system from the bench, just present to the state his belief related to potential conflicts in the mental health code. There's over 50 of them that have been identified. And that's why I think we have such a delay in his response, because I think it's like a big undertaking. So I think we will see some type of change in the PHP structure. Oh, and I do think we will see some change in the role and function of CMH, but I really don't know to the extent on the latter yet until there's a decision. And so I'll ask the board, did that make sense as an update of where we're at? Because, how CMH defines itself is really dependent on this decision. Just to remind the public, we have to exist. We will still exist regardless of what happens. We are mandated in the Mental Health Code and highlighted in the Michigan Constitution. So I'm not worried that CMH will go away. I just want to make sure we understand our role as it relates to managing the Medicaid benefit, which is 90% of our revenue in our services. So that's what we're waiting for. If it's released today, which I suspect the Friday dump at 5 o'clock, it may occur. I will, of course, over the weekend, consult with my colleagues, go through it, and provide a initial summary of what I think it means Monday. So whenever it is, a couple of days after, I will give an opinion based on kind of what our colleagues think of that. And so that has a big, context of what we do. I'll say it again publicly, no doubt our system needs restructuring. We need a lot more efficiency. We need more choice. I think there's a way to do it with respecting the role and function of CMH. I know that our regional entity partners, I give them a lot of credit, the Lakeshore Regional Entity. They are keeping their eye on the ball. They are, of course, anxious of like next time this year, this time next year, will they be in existence? I don't see a slowdown with the LRE. I see a willingness to move forward and to keep, as Mary Dumas, CEO says, we're going to keep doing what we're doing until somebody says we can't. And we're not going to be too overly concerned, even though it's hard not to, about what the future may mean for them. But just a shout out to them that. Now, one other thing is that if you're able to watch the testimony that was done the previous week related to this, if you want a recording of that, there's a way to get it and I can send it out. And one of the CEOs, Chip Johnston from Manistee Benzie, CMH, I call him the King of the North, just so you know. He's been in this field for 30 years and he eloquently went through the challenges that this proposal has in terms of CMHs at the county and local level would have. And I thought it was very well done. And it's going to allow the judge to say, dear state of Michigan, you need to resolve some of this. But I don't think the judge is going to say, can't do it. I think we're going to see change, some of it needed. And we're going to have to keep track of that, and I will. But if you're looking at which testimony to watch, Chip we call him Chip, but it's Joseph Johnston. He's a good one to watch, outlining the issues from a county and local CMH perspective. So just a little bit on that.
Can you send us the link to that?
I will do that, yeah. In terms of the authority update, yesterday there was a 2-hour discussion if we're going to actually have public hearings as part of the process for authority status. And I think what happened is we came to the conclusion that we're going to tentatively know where they are, but wait until January to kind of figure that out. I have been conducting, and I sent you all a document saying the CMH departmental impact analysis related to us moving from a county department to an authority, and I'm still working on that. The COO has been helping me with gathering some data internally and some other things that I'm looking at. And if you look at that document, you'll see the domains that I'm looking at: impact to staff, impact to the community, impact to our consumers, impact to our infrastructure. One part of the analysis that I'm not the lead on is the impact to other county departments if we're no longer part of them. That's being conducted by other administrative staff, and I'm obviously offering input into it. But I'm not conducting the analysis of what happens to, say, the HR department if 200 CMH employees are no longer served by them. That's being done by another group. We're going to be putting all of our information together and submitting our findings on these to the county commission, I think by January 6th. I think that's the date still, but that's what I'm shooting for. 2nd? Okay. Oh, great. I have less time now. All right. For review, I intend to release to the CMH board my version of this at the same time. I'm not going to release to the CMH board the other people's evaluation. But since I work for the CMH board, and anytime I do an interdepartmental CMH analysis, CMH staff and CMH board needs to know what I'm submitting. It's not top secret or anything. So you'll get that piece of the analysis, mine. At the same time, I'm submitting it to the administrator and other folks to integrate into more of that. We have had 2 all-staff meetings related to this. One of them was on Wednesday. And on Wednesday, we had the administrator, corporate counsel, county corporal counsel, and Karen from finance there, and to answer questions, to kind of go through it. It's a tough discussion because you're asked a question where you don't know the answer yet, but I've gathered all those questions. I will have a question asked, answer document done pretty quickly. There are over 60 questions, so I'm in the middle of categorizing them. I've also asked the strategic impact department at the county to assist me in putting together my information from the CMH level. And so we're working on how that's going to look as well pretty quickly. I've done 2 surveys that you might have seen as well. So I'm well on my way of trying to figure out the domains and the impact areas. And I will be releasing that to CMH staff and the board. I also intend in one of my next Did You Know, so I'll try to get one in there, to answer some questions to the community from my perspective, not on how it would be done, but just simply what the difference is between a CMH department and an authority. I was asked by one of the county commissioners, have you educated the public yet? And I said, absolutely not. I have not. I've been waiting to do that. I think it's necessary. So I intend, not in opposition to any strategy or plan that we may have in the county, but I feel an obligation to at least for our major stakeholders, them get a basic understanding of what the differences are, not how would we do it? Would this be devastating? They may have questions, but simply this is an authority and this is the department and here are the tension points. So if board members have a strong opinion that I should not do such a kind of review, I would let me know because I kind of want to do it pretty quickly here. Because right now, our public hasn't been educated from me, not if I think it's a good idea or not, all those, I'm not talking about that. But what does this mean? And I don't want to wait to public hearings that are providing information to county commissioners to begin that process. So I'm not usurping the public hearings, but I think it's one aspect I haven't done yet. I've talked to the board, I've talked to staff, I haven't talked to my stakeholders about the basic components and differences. And I'm feeling a little anxiety that I should do that and not wait for the county commission, who are the only people that can approve this, to engage the public. I'd like the public to know some basics so that those public hearings are more fruitful.
I think that's a really important point, and I did hear Sylvia talk about that yesterday as well, and saw your talk yesterday. I don't know if other people on this board are receiving phone calls from people. The phone calls I'm getting are from consumers or relatives of consumers, simply asking, well, why is this happening now? What's this all about? Why, and of course it's complicated because it's really not our decision to make, but we are doing an impact analysis of it. And Dr. Brashears will at some point be sharing that information. So I think that that's where the intervention needs to be.
Yeah. And, education helps.
Yeah.
Our staff are really on edge about it legitimately, and we're doing what we can to control that, but it's legitimate, right? And so, but I want to be able to answer some basic questions to kind of say, look, there's no possible way these things could happen to consumer care when you switch, or here is because if not, when we present all the information to the county commissioners, and then they say, all right, do your public hearings, I want to make sure that our folks have a more of a baseline knowledge, so they're not coming in asking questions that really wouldn't add value to county commissioners making a decision. Like, will I lose my Medicaid? Well, no, things like that. Is CMH closing? Really, that is one of the questions that I've seen from out there. Is Dr. Bashir's trying to create an empire? That's happened 3 times in the responses. Well, no. But, okay, what do you mean by that? So what's the advantages? Well, what are the pros and cons? Well, we can, in the public hearing, talk about that, but I want them just to understand what we're talking about first, department versus authority. And I have a table that does that. It doesn't take long to go through that. But I think it would be helpful as a context, because right now, the people that receive the services know the least about it. So I know there's a process to get them updated. And I very much appreciate the county commissioner saying 2 things at once. Hey, we don't want to wait forever to make a decision. When do you need to know by? Like, when do we need to know as a county by? But also, let's make sure we look at this closely. You can do both at the same time. So one are not opposed to the other. But, you know, I know the county commissioners that are on our board that were at the meeting yesterday. It was like Groundhog Day for 2 hours trying to figure out how to do this. And I appreciate our CMH County Commissioner board members weighing in on the importance on all of these issues. It was quite nice for me to, as a director, CEO, to see that, like, okay, but we can say, yes, we need to make a decision as soon as possible for transition, but let's make sure we're doing it with all the right information. They're not mutually exclusive. It's not either or. I think that's what we were struggling with yesterday, trying to figure that out. I wasn't. I was in the back going, okay. But so in terms of the authority update, unless there's strong opposition for me to do that, I want to do a basic review to the community and what is an authority versus a department. Not how are you going to do it? What's the impact? That gets presented later in a general public domain.
I'd just ask that you work with Patrick Waterman before you do that, just so, you know, we don't have any
Yep.
crossing.
Same
wires.
page. Yep. I will do that. The other thing is that we do have some board vacancies. I know that we're trying to fill them. We have a situation, we are, just to let the public know, we may be in need in more consumers of direct services applying for the board. I know we've been kind of reaching out to that. We may have 1, we may have 2 consumer vacancies on our board. One, because the person may not want to renew, and the other, we're trying to figure out if our consumer rep is able and willing to continue on the board. And so I asked the public, I asked our consumers, I asked family members, if we have a direct client that's interested in serving on the board, let your staff know, and they can let me know, or let me know directly, so that we make sure you can get in the application process that we're in right now. And having direct consumers on the board would be great. I'm particularly wanting to get representation from the substance use community or the family services community or MI community to help with some of that. And so just a request out there in the community. If you're interested in serving on the CMH board, contact us, your clinician or your treatment provider, and we can kind of get that process going. Now, the process is that I don't go to the county and say, pick these people, right? The county commissioners do that, but they do ask, like, hey, do you think, you know, yeah. So yes, we need consumers to do this. And it's an integral part of our board, and it's what makes us different than the private sector. So just a plea out there, and we'll be working diligently to let the board know I'm looking into that. And if you are aware of people that directly receive services from us that might be interested in the board, please let me know so I can ensure that they are in the process with the county. County's pretty much a stickler on this. They're not going to take an application the day after. Trust me, a lot of you know this. So we want to make sure we're in the right mix here.
What was the deadline on that again?
The end of the month, I believe.
December 31st.
Yeah, but we can work with but we're going to look at this pretty closely. So that was like my board vacancy update, where we're at with that. We do have other members that are currently serving in the board that's reapplied. And I'm thankful of that. We'll be working with the county through that process. One of the last things I'd like to bring to your attention is in a way to keep educating the impact of Medicaid in our county and what that does to us in funding, I put together, we have a report that was put together by utilization management using the data that we get from the Lakeshore Regional Entity about Medicaid utilization. And what are we talking about? So that first page, if you're a report geek, gives you all the parameters of how we're defining these things. And what this is looking at are multiple forms of Medicaid, the number of people that are enrolled in Medicaid, and the percentage of the number of people enrolled in Medicaid that we serve. And so I know that Director Rhodey and Commissioner Rhodey asked me, like, Michael, there's some advocacy we need to do with the county's kind of lobbyists, but we're going to have a full court press that I'm going to be asking families, providers, other legislators to get involved, because I'm going to walk through briefly what these are. And at the end of that journey, you're going to go, good gracious, we're asked to serve more people or current people with ever-changing needs and are more expensive with decreased revenue. And Ottawa is disproportionately hit versus other counties. And so let me walk through some of these. So if you go to the next one, let me see which one you're pulling up there. Okay. This looks at the utilization rate. And so what does utilization rate mean? Another term that's often used, and we change it, is penetration rate. How much of the Medicaid population are you serving, right? So to know that first graph's number, you have to know how many people are on Medicaid, and there are different forms of Medicaid, which you'll learn in a second. And then of the total number of Medicaid people in Ottawa County, what percentage of you targeting? And so you look at 5.61%, and you can kind of go, gee, Michael, when I look through the years from 2018 to 2025, I kind of see this thing where in 2021, 2022, and 2023, it seemed to go down, the number of people that we served on Medicaid. That's because the overall number of Medicaid lives increased. So that's not to suggest we were serving less people. We were serving less of the percentage of Medicaid because of the health emergency, allowing Medicaid to be obtained and kept easier. So don't be alarmed at, like, gee, in 2001, it looks like you were serving 4%. Well, 4% of a greater number. Does that make sense? So the way I interpret that is you go to 2023. Gee, when did we start having some of our Medicaid issues in terms of revenue and expenditures? About 2022, 2023, and moving forward. And you see what happens. The number of people that we served, the percentage went up to like 5.61, to, even greater than that, because the overall number of folks on Medicaid shrunk. So why is that important if I'm a community member? We traditionally at Ottawa County serve around the same percentage of Medicaid folks, regardless of how many, because they're the same people. They weren't discharged. So we have been serving people for years that are very expensive with high needs. And so that core percentage of how many people that you're serving on Medicaid hasn't changed much. But it can look like it changed dramatically when you look at a graph that says that. And I'm going to be coming back to our core hasn't changed. And I'm going to be making the statement that because of that, we should be funded on who we're serving and their needs, not based on our revenue coming based on the number of Medicaid lives. And it's going to be a heavy lift that we need to do regardless of who's managing the system. Because if not, all of Ottawa County is disproportionately impacted. And I'm going to show you that. So you can see that when you look at the graph right below it. and it talks about different types of Medicaid. TANF is a Medicaid that's like, okay, you're not permanently disabled on Medicaid. This is folks that meet on income requirements, not medical requirements. So TANF during the health emergency, boy, went way up. Then they put back in the old requirements and they're going way down, right? So the number of people in each of these kind of different types of Medicaid can change. And so the first one is the big blue line saying overall Medicaid. The next one is orange for TANF. Sorry, I said that with a Boston accent, orange, okay? The next one is Healthy Michigan, which is like a state health plan on Medicaid, right? And so we have benefits on that. That enrollment's been going down because of changes on it. And then the last one, which is barely changed, is the number of permanently disabled people on Medicaid that give you more money per person in our funding. And ours are the same people relatively, give or take percentage going up and down. And so I'm trying to make the case in these first two graphs that Ottawa County CMH is relatively serving the same core group of people in terms of severity of their needs, but the funding system doesn't adjust for that. As we get decreases in revenue, the only thing the Lakeshore Regional Entity can say to me, and Mary Dumas says it to me all the time, stay in your budget. Well, with the same people, with the expensive needs or increasing needs, the same group, stay in the budget, and the budget, the thing that seems to change in the budget more is the revenue? What does that mean? So this is trying to give you a sense of it. So if you go to the next page, yeah, this one's fun. So you take the different people that are on the very, first one's overall Medicaid, and these are the overall numbers, and you can see from once you get into the health emergency, it goes up like the first one in the top left quadrant, the overall Medicaid goes, right, goes way up. And then the unwinding, I think that's what we call it. And is that right? The unwinding? She's my expert in anything like, you know, acronyms and things like that. So the unwinding hit, meaning return to previous Medicaid standards hit. And you can see the number in Ottawa goes, and it's primarily folks that are on TANF working for eligibility requirements or the health plan change. People weren't allowed to stay on the Healthy Michigan plan. The DABs had some decrease too, but not at the same substantial rate. So while our expenditures for our core folks that are very expensive have either stayed the same or gone up, you heard in public comment from Heritage Homes, they're at 18%. They're 18% away from where they need to do this. The revenue to help with that keeps shrinking on the Medicaid side. And to me, this shows the flaw in the funding model that we need to address with whoever the regional entity is, with legislature to fund based on needs-based, not on the number of lives. And so I'm going to be putting together a strategy after the first of the year that includes your review of the strategy to address this issue at the state, legislator's strategy. We'll know who the new region is to kind of get there, because we can change the way that the Medicaid is sent to each CMH. This CMH particularly were on needs-based before 2001. That's what we did. It was based on traditionally how much it cost and who we're serving, not the number of lives. So this is changeable. It's not like, well, what are you going to do, Michael? You're just trying to get more revenue and you're trying to point to this. You bet. Because Ottawa, and compared to others, our slope is much steeper. Even last year, when we had a little bit more money come in the system because we got the 140 released, Ottawa still ended up with an overall decrease in Medicaid because our lives kept going down, where other partners did not. They saw an overall increase in Medicaid because their Medicaid lives didn't fall as steep. We should not be punished that we take care of our citizens in Ottawa County that may not need as much public assistance as other counties. That's because we take care of them with nonprofits and all kinds of things. We're a given community, but we're getting the shaft in the public mental health system based on this philosophy. And, you know, Commissioner Director Georgema asks me all the time, can you guarantee? I got to solve this problem and understand the expenditure side simultaneously. Because it doesn't matter how much utilization management I do or cuts you do, this problem doesn't go away on the revenue side. And it's the biggest determinant of why we have any Medicaid projected deficit. It's reductions in revenue. I mean, we have increases in expenditures, don't get me wrong, but every business does. And you have to be able to know what the revenue is going to be, and you need to have a fair methodology to get it. We did this before, 15 years ago with general fund. We had the second lowest general fund in the state. We, Ottawa County, started funding equity now, shouldn't matter where you live, general fund. We went from the second lowest to being in the middle of the pack and receiving less general fund cuts. And then when we restructured the whole general fund system several years ago, we're now, out of all of the CMHs, the 10th highest. We used to be the second to the bottom. This can be done, but we're going to have to put an effort in to do it, or I'm working with the situation where just because our folks are no longer meeting criteria, we have less to deal with, less revenue for the same exact core people in issues. The expenditures go up, not down. I don't have a report like it went down. Expenditures for a core group of people. So these graphs are just kind of give you an understanding of them, and I'll be breaking them down more and more in PQI and Finance Committee, each of the sub-elements. But I wanted to let the whole board know that changing the way that Medicaid is distributed within our region or any region and in the state to us needs to be educated to the legislature because they can change it. We had many different systems in the past. This isn't the required way to do it. The feds are not saying do it that way. So I'll take questions on that. That's why I wanted to show you this, is that you can get an understanding what the revenue cliff we're on by the number of enrollees. And then if the federal government make changes, any cut to Medicaid is a cut to us.
I would just say that at the LRE, everything is sort of bated breath, waiting for Judge Yates's decision. However, this needs-based model is certainly something that I'm going to be advocating for at our LRE. And hopefully we could get some folks behind that issue. It is not an easy lift. I said this last time, because in our region, you have to have 5 unanimous CMHs to agree to make that change. And some CMHs are benefiting under the current situation. And so to be able to have that discussion is really where we're at right now, so it doesn't get shut down. So.
Would it be helpful also on a state level to have, now I know that middle level is changing, so who knows at this point, but it seems like going forward, we also need that distribution model to change like into the different parts of the state and the different counties.
Yeah, I'm having conversations with MDHHS, with the LRE executive, Mary. We've already outlined a series of areas that we believe that the current funding formula the state uses to give the money from the region is missing some key variables. And we had that discussion related to a lot of different services, and that is that figured in. And so quickly, the initial feedback was, we'll look into it after the holiday and what the restructuring is going to be. But then they said, gee, any data that you have, Doc, would be helpful. And I went, sent them a whole bunch of stuff, right? So the state is aware that we need to look at this. And I think that they're looking at the state, meaning the department, okay? Yeah. That they're thinking that the restructuring of the PHP may help with some of this to kind of get that. But even our provider network, any services that we do, not just residential, are saying, hey, listen, I don't think you're understanding the severity of the people that we're serving, and their needs don't change much. And to me, there's an illusion. Director Duff, block your ears because I know this. There's an illusion that people can go down in level of care That's not actually the case to the extent that people think, because the people we serve are in the most severe form. So going down to level of care looks dramatically different than one might think. It's the difference between like a partial going every day for something to one that doesn't happen. And in the DED world, it doesn't happen. And family services are dealing with some of the most complex families. And so what does that mean to go down in the level of care? It means less of something. Okay, so a traditional utilization management level of care, people moving up and down, the movement's like a lot less. And I've been able to put information together to demonstrate that I'll bring to PQI and other committees to show you that. Like, they're not moving, they're staying put, and we have to make different decisions on what we're providing. But I say block years because I know that you understand level of care.
Well, and Bob, I really appreciate too that you have brought up the fact that, if people aren't getting as much care as they need, you end up being hospitalized,
Right.
So we're not ending up saving money,
Right.
by
Exactly.
cutting level of care. It actually
No.
makes things worse.
And right now, when we hear all of the stuff with the specialized residential rate crisis, I have staff in other departments going, what does that mean, Doc? Does that mean you're going to cut me to make up those differences? It's a good question. Like, how do you balance it, right?
Yeah.
And some of those issues in the different parts of our organization, substance abuse, family services, haven't even raised to the surface of board discussion. And I'm going to start doing that. Because one of the things I get accused of, and indirectly you do, is that we only care about DD issues, right? It's not the case. It's my job to present this to you. And so I'll be doing more of a concerted effort of how this impacts all of the organization and make sure that we're bringing issues from the other population groups to forefront as a way of supporting everything we said. I've had an overemphasis in specialized residential because I see it as first of all, it's our highest expenditure and our greatest emergency. That doesn't mean there aren't other emergencies. There's a whole list of them. So advocacy at all levels is going to be needed to deal with this. But I want to let the board know it has been done in the past. This isn't just me going, we're going to do this and I'm going to do it myself. No, it takes a gigantic lift, and we're going to put together some of the scaffolding and ways to do that. And the first thing that would be helpful to know is what's the PHP is going to do in terms of restructuring. But I have the full support of the regional director, CEO saying, yes, time to look at needs-based. She doesn't have a lot of power to implement it, but she's like, let's have the examination.
Well, and I think one thing that's happening with the LRE, just looking at it from the outside, is we're fighting over scraps. Like,
Right.
there's not enough money going to the LRE. And so, how do you divvy it up when there's just not enough? So-
Are you doing any projections for, what's going to happen to Medicaid in 2027 as a result of all of the federal government changes?
We're waiting for the state to kind of help us with that. I haven't personally done it because we can't agree upon, meaning there isn't consensus of what we think the impact will be yet purely. But that is a discussion that has started definitely at the department level, at the state level, and we're going to have to look at what we think. All I can tell you is from what I know about what's projected in terms of the change in eligibility, it could have an impact on us, and I'll have to get into more detail on it, in two basic levels. It could mean in 2027, if you have to reapply for Medicaid more frequently, some of our folks on the disabled, aged, and blind category could fall off Medicaid while they're getting reinstated, which would be disastrous for any of them, but especially them. So we're looking at our processes related to who's on DAB, who's responsible to make sure that they stay on DAB. And so we're working with, we have one person that from the another Health and Human Services to look at that with us, looking at our specific people. So that's one area of potential disaster, is when you increase the frequency when somebody has to reapply, that group that's permanently disabled would have to do so. And let's just say there's so much documentation that goes into that. The other thing is a lot of the folks on TANF, right, that are not there because of a disability, but because of income, they may just say, forget it. If they have to keep reapplying every 90 days, which impacts us. So the reason why I haven't done, like, say, a comprehensive analysis is I'm still trying to figure out like what the parameters of that analysis would be. Like, do I just suggest like a 30% reduction or a 20%? And trying to get some consensus from other partners of how they're looking at it. But that's what you would need to do that. It's anticipated in 2027 that there might be a 10% reduction in Medicaid recipients because of the noise of reapplying. And those of you that are guardians know what I'm talking about. It's this huge undertaking. And if you have to do it like every 90 days or every whatever. Yeah. So the answer to your question, I hate to say it, is kinda. I'm in the initial stages, but I need some more data to actually make analysis worthwhile. The rest of it is just, oh my God, this could happen. And I want to have a little bit more. Most likely this could happen versus we all think the sky's falling, but I haven't seen anything that says this is estimated exact percentage or, so we're gonna have to guess on some of it.
Sure.
Michael, a couple of questions. You left out another page. And if I could characterize
Oh, yeah.
what you've done to this point is you've quantified a portion of the problem,
Mhm.
dealing with the realities of various Medicaid classes on which the funds are distributed. The difficulty is we have a capitated distribution model for these types of Medicaid services. And the two aren't really connected, as you are well
Right.
aware. Because we have TANF population in the mix of how the money gets distributed, that has no bearing whatsoever on the nature of the people that we serve and the number of people that we serve.
Right.
So if you look at your next, I don't know whether you're planning to look at this, but to me, this is the most critical chart. The total distinct consumers who received at least one Medicaid
Yes.
funded service by month. That's our consumer base. That's who
Right.
we serve. And it has no basis whatsoever in correlation to the number of people on TANF. And
Correct.
what we need to do is advocate for a system that says, what's your customer base? What does it cost to deliver appropriate services to them? Here's your money.
Yeah. And other
Can't have
states
many
have
people
done it.
enrolled in
Other states
Medicaid.
have done it. They've based it on mental health prevalence rates.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and disability prevalence rates. You know, and you look at that last chart, I guess I failed to look at it because they all go up, right? And so the total distinct consumers and the Medicaid utilization rates gone up. That top one does have some interface with the number changing, but the bottom one doesn't.
But the top one doesn't bother me as being
Right.
relevant, other than to point out the inaccuracy of the existing system. You know, the percentage of Medicaid utilization rate is irrelevant.
Mhm.
You know, what we're really concerned with, how many consumers do we serve? And then furthermore, I would take that bottom chart and break it up and say, how many people who are permanently disabled in need of specialized residential by number, and what is the cost per individual
Yeah.
in 2018, 19, 20,
Yeah.
21?
And I
to
can do
deliver
that analysis. We already
Yeah.
did that analysis for our current group. I can't really go back too much in time because the data is incomplete,
Yeah,
but,
but the same thing, what other class of consumer do we have
oh, autism, just,
who have ongoing, expected, continuing needs of supports? Severe and persistent mental illness.
That's
We have consumers we serve who are going to be facing a lifetime of needs of support.
right. Mental illness, on the mental illness side is a lifetime thing. You may go in remission, but it doesn't go away.
Mhm.
We're not treating people that just have mental health symptoms or are reacting to an environmental stress. You have to have a very legitimate mental health diagnosis on the MI
Mhm.
side. All of your conclusions are correct. And I guess I didn't go there because I was like, how many times do I have to spike the football before I kind of go, yeah, okay, now what, right? But I think it's important for people to hear in the public, you know, the things that our number of people are increasing at times in different areas. The core people who we serve hasn't changed that in terms of, hasn't changed that much, right? But the revenue has changed based on another variable that to me doesn't relate. Number of Medicaid lives means nothing to the mandate of CMH services. We must serve anybody that walks in access that meets our criteria, no insurance, Medicaid, and refer them to private. And that's not figured in. And the state gave up on giving us general fund of any consequence years ago to pull down more Medicaid. Right? So there is a way to do this. We're going to keep highlighting it. The region is understanding this because Kent County's going, how do I cut $18 million? Are you saying that we're mismanaging $18 million? We don't think it's mismanagement, okay? There's a real issue going on with the number of, how we're serving and the benefit that we're having. And if we know this is the case, and so I may need some of your help getting some Kent County folks involved with me on this vendetta, because clearly out of the 10 PHPs, only one of them didn't have a deficit. And guess what? They run a needs-based model in how they distribute their Medicaid within the region. People are getting paid what they need based on who they're serving, not some formula.
But somehow they're also getting a more adequate amount of money
They
channeled
are.
into that entity.
They are. And we have to make sure that in that example, they're not denying care either.
Mhm.
Right. Because, you can UM by saying no. And if no one tells you you're not supposed to say no, I can save all kinds of money tomorrow. Just shut the front door. It's illegal, but I could do it. I wouldn't do it, but shut the front door, say no to any increases when clients need increases in their care. Right? Just do that. In a strict managed care model, when it's not an entitlement, that's how managed care companies work because it's a benefit. It's not an entitlement. They change the benefit all the time. You used to get 10, now you get 8. Now you get 5. We don't do that. We can't do that.
Earlier, you talked about medical necessity and the ability to drive a truck through that, the interpretation of that. Okay. Now I'm going to make a very biased statement, having worked in the private sector and now in the public sector. In the private sector, medical necessity is often used to deny service, where we are working on trying to provide the appropriate service for people. Now, I could get in trouble for saying that, but I don't care anymore. But the bottom line is that's what we have to really advocate for, is the appropriate level of care.
And
Not
uniform
just a
standards.
system that says, well, we need to make some money here, so we can deny this, we can deny this. And, those appeals processes are in those programs too, but
Yeah. And one of the state's legitimate complaint in the
Yeah.
current system is that we don't have uniform standards to make such a call.
right.
You're like, hello? I mean, they get beat up too at the department. And it's not like, they're not like enemy number one, okay? They're our partners. They're trying to manage this with us. Now, I wish we had better dialogue, more solutions together, all those stuff, but it's not like, there was a day when the department came themselves and did the audits at each local CMH. We were such partners that they had a stake in it. Paul and I used to do those reviews with them. Once the regional entity system came up, the PHPs, all bets are off. There's too much of a level of separation between the state and the local CMH. I say go to 0 PHPs. You could, there are CMHs right now that are also the PHPs right now as we speak. Oakland, Macomb, Detroit, Wayne. So you can be both the CMH and a PHP, It just means the state has to manage the contract. That's a whole administrative level that you could just totally say no to, if that's the goal. But anyways, I showed you these to understand that we're looking at our unique impact to the reduction of Medicaid in Ottawa County and how that disproportionately disrupts our revenue stream that's different than any other partner in the region. So I have to work with the region and the state to understand that we're getting disproportionately hit. When I have a whole database, I might be able to stay statistically significantly differently hit. I hope to get there as well, to comparing us to others. But Ottawa County residents need to understand that we are being disproportionately affected by the reduction in Medicaid people in our county. And we should not be penalized for helping people get off a TANF through other stuff. So all the work we do to help people with the leg up that doesn't involve Medicaid, we get penalized. Thanks all, Donna, thanks for Compassionate Heart. Stop doing that, please, because, then people might have more support and they may not need Medicaid and then.
Well, that's exactly what I've been hearing. Like, thank God we do have all the nonprofits
right.
over here, because if we didn't,
Right.
you've said it before, it shouldn't matter what your zip code is.
That's right.
And they plan that we're only going to serve 6%.
That's
the
right.
voice. So maybe we should stop doing what we're doing, Barbara, and just let it figure it out, because
Good luck, everybody.
good
right?
luck, right?
So
Yeah.
thank God we have the millage and thank God we have programs that help.
And we're not going to stop, Barbara. We're not going to stop. Joel here, right? But seriously.
Right. And so I'm raising it to that level of anxiety to say that, okay, this is the truth. And so now we have to say, all right, Dr. Bashirs, how do you deal with the $5 million deficit? Well, if I'm not attacking that full time, the answer becomes, and I say, we'll use the ISF of the regional entity. Well, sooner or later, they run out of money,
Right. Well, there
Oh,
are two options. We take the consumers we're serving and we move them to other counties. Or we bring more poor people into Ottawa County to raise our Medicaid
right.
rates.
That's a
Neither
billboard
of
that's
which are
interesting,
acceptable.
but yeah, right, we have people moving to Ottawa County, establishing residency here, and then seeking services from us, right? We're a county where people are coming to. No one's fleeing Ottawa County. We have new apartment programs that are being built that we even help support with millage to attract people to come and live. Well, once they establish a residency in Ottawa County, guess what? I got to serve all their other needs. Where before, wherever they were in the state, they didn't have a permanent address or whatever and all that stuff. They get off the hook. That's also an issue. Am I going to turn away people? This isn't like the border at Mexico. Stay out. People come here for us and our staff. And I can show it. We don't have people leaving. We have people coming. They establish residency, some of them with real complex needs. And all of a sudden we have an additional expenditure that's part of our mandate that could be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars with no real increase in revenue. So, and that's a flaw in our kind of county financial responsibility system on that. So, we have a program, we do it with Sandy Baker. What's her name?
Harmony Homes.
Harmony Homes, right? So we funded with millage RAs to help people live independently without needing residential and other stuff. Well, if they come from another county and they live there and all of a sudden they need residential, guess what? We pay for it. So I'm like, do I ever want to promote that from a cost perspective? I'm crazy. From a human, what we're supposed to do? Absolutely. But no one's taken that into account. Migration.
Sounds like you need a bill on that.
Yeah, I got a whole list. I'm gonna have to get you and Jordan in a room for 8 hours and, but you understand what I'm getting at? And these are huge systemic elephants in the room.
Because that if you would have that cost of care for a high needs individual, if that amount would follow them no matter where they lived, that would help
Right.
a lot.
It would. It would be a lot. And if it was needs-based, right, that would be captured in that. What is your current need and expenditures, and can you prove it? Anyways, that concludes my report.
Thank you. The item 10 has been canceled. Chelsea's not able to make it here today, so Michael will be rescheduling her presentation. I'm not aware of any old business for us to address. New business. Would you like to address that, Michael? First
Okay.
item.
So that is Brianna's recipient rights report.
Yep.
That you now have to approve.
Do we have a motion?
So moved with staff changes.
Mhm.
That's right.
Support.
Okay. Any questions about the report that's been submitted? All those in favor of approving the report, respond by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have a new meeting schedule, Michael.
Amanda has the next several items.
Yep.
So I have the new schedules for the board meetings as well as both the finance and the PQI committees. I can pull all of them up. I have them if you need, but does anybody have any questions on them? Just goes over each time. Both the board and the finance committee are monthly. The finance committee is always the Monday before the board meeting. PQI is the second Monday of each month. I'm sorry, every other month, every other,
right now.
right now, yes, currently.
A motion to approve the schedules.
So moved.
Should we do them all together as one vote? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so the attachments C, D, and E. Any comments, questions? If not, all those in favor of approving the scheduled meetings, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. General information, comments, meetings attended. Any board members have anything to share with us?
Sure. First of all, I need to apologize for some of my comments a few seconds ago. There are some really good people who work for insurance companies and really do a good job trying to serve people. I just, the contrast to me sometimes just becomes so evident that I get a little frustrated. But I was able to meet in the LRE meeting this week. Obviously, Michael's talked very, very eloquently about waiting for Judge Yates' determination. And so there was not a lot of action items that were dealt with in the LRE. And I will continue to make it an important aspect of my role on the LRE to continue to talk about this needs-based model and also the residential rate calculator. So in regards to those things. We did have one action item that we signed a resolution to support House Bills 5134 and 5135, which is a prohibition of advertising of cannabis products on billboards, including digital billboards. As you know, alcohol and tobacco are not allowed to advertise on billboards and whatnot. But you drive across the state line and you see cannabis billboards all over the place. And this comes to the board, given that we're finding that there seems to be more of a public health issue with young people getting into their parents' hooch. And kind of overdosing because the level of THC in the product that's being advertised now is increased. And we know that young people who are predisposed to mental health issues, right, THC can accelerate that. And so we felt it was important to sign on to those House bills with a letter of resolution in regards to that. Last meeting, I talked about working with Bonnie in regards to at least getting started with some PQI data in regards to how our millage programs are performing so that we can kind of kick off the Friends of CMH folks to try and get that thing going. Again, I want to emphasize CMH as an authority or as a department cannot actually run this campaign, okay? They can give data, they can give whatever they want, but they can't run the campaign. Given that Peggy has been through this once before, I've asked her as well to join in terms of just giving me some wisdom about what we've been through. And it's already paid dividends in that Peggy's been able to use some resources to get us a place to meet and whatnot. But I would say that I want to be very careful that this is not centralized on us. I really hope that this is a full board effort. I'm hopeful that the full board understands and can contribute with ideas and ways in which we can get this passed. So feel free to reach out to Peggy, Bonnie, or myself if you have ideas moving forward in regards to that. So we'll continue to try and do some more things after the holidays.
Do we know what the competition will be for millage renewals when we are up for renewal from other?
We know that Parks is definitely doing a millage, asking for a millage resolution. And I've heard rumblings, rumors that maybe veterans are too, but I really don't know. That's been very unclear to me. But both the Parks and our millage will be on the August ballot.
And a lot of the townships also have millages that might, we have library millages,
Sure.
aquatic center millages, and road funding millages, all kinds of competing millages. And I think the danger is if we get too many millages on the same ballot, the taxpayers are going to start striking no, no, no.
Yeah, we don't want to flood the zone. So.
Just an anecdotal comment on your advertising. They're advertising marijuana over in Grand Rapids on billboards.
Everywhere. It doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah.
I mean, go down to Detroit and it's just all over the place. You know, you go to a Lions game, I think you get a free sit down or something like that.
You go to Lansing, Cedar Street.
Yeah.
All words.
Yeah. So at any rate, those are the comments that I have.
Anyone else have anything to offer?
Just want to say thanks again to Bob for what you're doing on the LRE. I mean, we've been in a bad spot for a long time, and finally we've got someone good advocating for what needs to be done. So thank you for doing that.
Thanks. I'll do the best I can.
I guess one more thing too is thank you to Dr. Bashirs for beginning the education process to the community. I think that's going to be really important to help people understand what's going on. It's a complex system, so.
And Kendra?
Not important, but September 25th, I was just looking ahead, meeting next year. I will not be able to attend. My youngest is getting married.
In September? Okay, good, because I've banned all November weddings, because the last time I went to a November wedding, we had
Yeah.
financial. So
Anyone else? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
public comment.
You're adjourned.
I think we have
Oh,
to
big
second
turn.
public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Public comments, one last shot for public comments. And Amanda, anyone online? Okay. Thank you. Now we will adjourn.